Hey everybody, welcome to No Breakaways, your source for all the Zwift racing tips and tricks. My name's Rick Wenger. I'm here with my co-host Jordan Shane. How you doing, Jordan?
Good, Rick.
And unfortunately, Jackie couldn't join us this week. She had some exercise-induced asthma. She said she'd been having trouble talking and coughing, and just wasn't good to talk for 45 straight minutes. Which we'll give her a pass this week. I know she's probably everybody's favorite. So, yeah, Jordan, how was your week, man? How'd everything go?
It was an interesting week. We always had the big Premier League on Monday, which we talked about, Innsbruck KOM. I was looking forward to that one, racing with the Finesse team. Didn't go as I'd hoped, but certainly, I don't know, it's sort of a landmark race for Zwift League because it was an uphill finish and it certainly played out in a different way. And I think it was very exciting. It's hard to see that when you're suffering and bent over the bike during, but I think it was a good product.
Yeah, that's it. I watched a little bit of the men's race. I had like meetings all day, like I try to block out my time so I can watch you all, but it is what it is. I suppose I have to work. But yeah, so did your race go the way you wanted it or?
No, I mean, for me, it was an off day. I didn't have the power when it came to that climb. Um, I think the leaders ended up going up that thing around 6 watts a kilogram, and I managed like 5.7, which it sounds close, but the way that climb happened, there was just a critical point halfway through where the leaders made a break, and then it was broken, and so the bigger blob goes away, and the stragglers are behind. And I was fighting for 30th or 25th and ended up coming 36th because of course it was still a sprint at the end of like 12 guys and I got my doors blown off. But my teammate Karsten did crack the top 30. I think he came 27th, which is
Yeah.
pretty awesome. And again, that's a high amount of power. 5.7 is, especially after three leg snappers, is a lot. But the guys up front really put on a show. Watch the replay of that. My two picks were Vyas and Ovet, and the old 1-2 with those. So I don't know where you bet on Zwift, but maybe I'll have to start placing some. Maybe that's like a Pete Rose thing if I'm in the race, though. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean I don't know that you could necessarily bet on it. But unless you bet on yourself to lose, but I
Yeah,
feel like
but he did that, and that was problematic because dude, I can lose with the best of them.
I am
So
also really solid at losing. I've proven that time and time and time again. So yeah, I mean that's still, 30th or whatever you got in Premier League. That's still a very good result. I mean, I
yeah,
would personally take that if it were me.
yeah. Unfortunately, 36th is out. The 30th is the end of the points, so you end up 36th. Like you still put in a real good effort. You get a big old zero on it for points, but it's like you have those days sometimes, and mentally you just have to get through it. And I could have given up and came 80th because I was there to win or get in the top five, and once that was gone, it's hard to deal with that. Watch the race go away from you, but you keep fighting. And once we get back out on the road, at least for myself, those days, you want to have those in the bank where you keep fighting and limit your losses and things like that. And yeah, so it's still a good experience to have. And it was a good marker for me to realize that I maybe need a little bit of rest during this ongoing Zwift campaign.
Yeah, so I want to come back to that. I was just pulling up the women's results. They Catherine Curie, is that how you say her name? I'm terrible at this
Yeah.
sort of stuff. She got the win. I know we were going to have Jackie talk about it, but Joss Loudon, Kristen Kolczynski, Caroline Williams. So, I mean, Heino again, way up there, but not quite as dominant as they have been.
And watching the race again, the women's was more exciting. The men's was exciting because it did have a breakaway leading in. McGlinchey and Ollie Jones were away before the climbs. There's a little bit of drama there, but the women's, it was just blowing to bits every time in the leg snapper, every sprint. People getting dropped, people coming back. Um, I coach an athlete that's in that field, and she got dropped on the third leg snapper by like, a bike length and ended up battling back for 28th. But it's just crazy. You look at those results and you think, it's the strongest because Curry's on a tear. Some of those
Yeah.
women are always, but if you look a little further back, it is a battle for the entire race in the women's, and it's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I see Annabella stole Dansera Dansarau? I don't know how to say her name. Maybe you do.
You're a
She,
big fan of hers, then.
well, so no, well, I saw her in actually the women's race that we covered that was going to be Jackie's race of the week that I'll cover now. She was actually in that race too. So I'm like, oh, it's interesting to see. I guess that race was yesterday too. So just interesting to see because it'll be cool because I was covering a sea rider who was keeping up with Annabella. So
Wow,
it'll be
not a
kind of
seat long.
well, yeah. Interestingly, she kept C power, which we'll get to, and that's one of the things I want to talk to. I feel like I'm specifically good at talking to that and how to keep
Yes.
your watts low riding with faster people. You don't have to worry about that because you just keep your watts high, and you
You
don't.
just throw them down and waste
Yeah,
them everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
You could just ride 6, 7 watts per kilo as long as you want. So
That's what it's all about. No, it's once like one. I think my article on Zwift Insider of the first week of the Premier League, I mentioned that like all of a sudden you didn't have to care too much about your efficiency before because I don't know 4 or 4.5 in the draft doesn't really make a difference to me in terms of feeler. But all of a sudden, when you're up in the sixes and sevens and every gap is an 8 or a 9, you start to work on that drafting really
yeah,
carefully.
yeah, yeah. Well, let me know if you need some help. That's the only thing I can work with you on bike racing,
Got to do a
drafting in Zwift.
We'll do a coach session. That'll be yell at me.
Yeah, drop back, drop back.
Less power.
So I want to talk about something I've been feeling too. You said you're feeling a little burnt out. Maybe elaborate a little bit on that and kind of what you're going to do. Why do you feel like you've been being burned out? I mean, what's up?
Yeah. So that it's a funny thing. Like you don't realize it, I think, until the rubber hits the road, or maybe the S hits the fan, is the analogy. Um, but yeah, like I had a great first week of the Premier League. Really was happy with my physical performance and my mental state in it, like attacking and all that. It was great. All of a sudden in the TTT, 2 weeks ago, didn't have the legs, sort of frustrated with my performance at the end of it. Tried to rally for this Innsbruck thing. And then in the practice race I did on the Wednesday, didn't ride well. And then on the race itself, I thought, I had it and I didn't. And that's tough. Then all of a sudden you realize, man, like I've been at this a long time. For me, I jumped onto Zwift in September because the World Championship thing had come on the horizon. Team Canada had sort of drafted me into the selection pool for that, and so I was like, I'm going to take Zwift seriously. Enter finesse, enter ZRL, and so I started racing there in ZRL week one, and we did the 10 weeks there, and Worlds obviously, and then we did the Three Sisters test stuff to verify, and then the Premier League right after. So all of a sudden you've done 20 plus races in 10, 12 weeks there, and it's a lot. It's dragged on and it's been a season in itself. And mentally you don't realize how much you put into these little races. Physically they're 40 to 60 minutes. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but you are on it for those. At least I am.
Yeah.
I come into every race. Maybe that's something from the road. Like we don't get as many race opportunities. So each one is that much more important. So I'm used to coming fully teed up and I'm going to leave it all out there and make the most of it. And I think I did that. I was happy with all of those really. But all of a sudden you're out of gas and contributing to that too is the road side. Like I'm preparing for a season that I don't know when and if it's going to happen. So balancing that and putting a little extra pressure on the Zwift stuff because of that, it just became too much, too many stones in the basket of Zwift racing all of a sudden. And so I told the guys right after I finished, I just said, I'm sorry, guys, I didn't have the legs, and I didn't even think about it. But the first thing I said was, I just have to step away from this for a little while,
Hmm.
so I'm going to do that. I'm not going to race tomorrow in Yorkshire, even though the fact that it's a longer 3 lap race kind of appeals. It's going to be a suffer fest. I really like that idea. but I just need a week off at least, and it's almost 2 weeks off because it's a team time trial the following week, and that's sorta that doesn't have the same sort of pressure associated. You just do your thing, you know? And so, we'll try to ease back into that, maybe take a lesser role for the team time trial as well, and try to get back into it for week, 6
Yeah.
and round in and also doing some more fun things and training on the road. And having the weeks not based around, slam some training, recover, taper, weigh in, Premier League. Like it's a
Hmm.
very regimented thing all of a sudden. And so we're trying to get out of that funk a little bit. And so we'll see what happens. It's a unique situation, not used to having burnout in January. Like
Yeah.
usually the world's your oyster at this time as a pro cyclist. You're thinking you're getting better, you're looking ahead, training camps, but everything's different, right? And I think you were mentioning the same, like the burnout
Yeah.
about
Well, I mean, I don't race outside. I only rode outside 3 times in 2020. So, it's like I mean, I Zwift. I'm here 3 feet away from my where I'm sitting right now, all year round, and I love racing in Zwift. And I did some structured training over the summer, just like following a plan, and then I figured I'd race all through the fall and winter, try to race 3, 4 times a week. And I saw ZRL come up. I was super excited just because it's like a really cool structured thing. And what I kind of found out through that first season, through all 10 weeks, is it reminded me of my college cross country seasons where I was always so excited to start. And it's just very intense, like much more intense than just my normal Zwift racing. Like I'd hop in the Thursday All My Crit double, and if I didn't want to do the second race, I just wouldn't do the second race. Or if I had a meeting, I just missed the race. Whatever, doesn't matter. But in ZRL, everything, it's not like there's pressure. My team is awesome, super good guys. Nobody puts pressure, but like you feel that pressure yourself in those races. It's just much more serious, and I've been surprised. Yeah, I guess just surprised how much pressure the ZRLs in specifically put on me, and like how burnt out I was after the first season. I mean, I was just done.
Yeah, and I think that's normal, right? You get to the end of when it's September, October, when I'm done the road racing season, it's like, yeah, I'm done with this. You're counting down the days. Almost every season of my career, you're like, yeah, I gotta have a rest here. Not because you don't love it anymore, but because it's a grind and pressure's an
Yeah,
inside job, no matter how you feel about it or how many people make you feel about it. It's here, right?
yeah,
But that's an interesting point about Premier League, about ZRL. It's a weird thing. We're gonna have to figure out the culture of how we approach this as athletes, because if this keeps going 8, 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off every year on the year, I don't know too many people that can stand up to that. And I don't know how your stars at the top end are still going to be stars, and how the people that we really care about, the community, are going to enjoy it when it loses the specialness, but you also just lose your edge.
yeah,
And so it'll be interesting to see how Zwift formats it. Obviously, it's in their best interest to just have it all the time, all the attention all the time, all the interest of people. But yeah, we'll see whether this is a seasonal thing or an ongoing thing, and how they wait it out.
yeah. I hope they. I know they plan to run these all year long, and I really hope they take the summer off because I think a lot of us could just use just the summer off. Just like season one, season two, and I've really enjoyed season two. But then take a break until season three in the fall, or something like that, and just let people kind of take that
Yeah.
step back, let people organize, do whatever they want.
And I just put a bow on it. I always look at Swift Racing Premier League as a pro sport in the making. And when we look at pro sports, they have a narrative, and the narrative is season playoff championships. Everyone, even golf, something like more abstract, they now have that structure, but we don't have that
Yeah,
as of yet. And I think that's a direction they need to go, just to keep the interest they have, and let the stars be stars as well.
yeah. It's almost like I know Zwift had the Tour de France, but honestly, like I care a ton about the community racers, and then that extends to Premier League too, because I mean, I know you're a pro on the road, but ultimately, like, you're really participating in Zwift. You didn't show up for the Premier League and then never ride it again. But like, what is our Tour de France? What is our playoff series? Like, what does that look like? I think that we need to start envisioning something like that for sure. Um,
Exactly.
so, anyways, so Sammy on the chat, he wanted to know what you thought about Ovid's performance, and I know you already touched on it, but do you think he's the best Zwifter in the world right now?
Well, there's lots of dangerous waters around that. But yeah, you know what? I looked at that performance and like my first reaction when I got dropped is like, crap, these guys are doing unrealistic things. I'm a pro. I should be able to. But you look at the numbers, it's not. He did 6 watts a kilo up that climb and then did a pretty fantastic sprint, which, I can do the six. I can't do the sprint. But that's believable. And it's totally, so the performance, if you're asking about that, I think it's great.
No, he's
I
just
think
wondering if he thinks you're the best. If he thinks Ovet overall is the best Swifter. Like,
right, right. Yeah. So the performance, I'm just saying the performance is excellent, but totally, to be expected. And I think he had that plan, which is great.
yeah,
Um, you know what? If you look at his toolbox, he's got the sustained power, he's got the sprint, you could make an argument for it. Depends, always horses for courses, right? Depends on the race, but I like the guy. I like seeing a road pro come in and use the power and the experience on the road to do it. The only thing is the thing we talk about a lot in Zwift is that we're not racing up these Alpe d'Huez climbs like where it's super super steep and absolute power often trumps watts per kilo in the practical sense. And Freddie's a light rider, like he's a little bigger than me. Like I'm 61 kilos, he's 64 or something, and he would give the edge maybe in terms of like being a team rider to a bigger like a workhorse guy who can do 500 watts for 10 minutes or whatever those huge guys can do, because team time trials, that's more useful. Sprint races, flat races, that's more useful. Alpe d'Huez, Freddie's probably going to win it,
yeah.
or Alpe Swift, I should say. But all around, you maybe favor like a Vanderpool over a Bernal, right, as the best rider in the world, or whatever. But he's in the conversation, which is super awesome to see, right?
Yeah, I hope Zwift gets to the point where, just like outside, like you said, Bernal, Vanderpool, no one is like, which one's just straight better. Like, it's not. It's just like you said, horses for courses. That's a good one. So like, I hope Zwift starts in like kind of changing things around, because like you look at Holden. Holden's amazing. Like, very few people are gonna ever outsprint him, right, or consistently outsprint him. But Holden's not going to get up Alp to Zwift as fast as Freddie Ovett. And that's cool. Like, it doesn't make one better than the other. It just makes them totally different, right? Or like Warren Muir is, I know he's a climber, but he's kind of in the middle, right? Like, we have all these people that are all different things. So, I mean, I hope we develop some sort of either ranking system or just like maybe get away from the Zwift power rankings a little bit, for a number of reasons, but because, you know,
No, that needs to go as any sort of metric on. Yeah, I just don't think that's how you see who's the best.
I personally love the rankings, but I feel like they need a different, like, I
You
want
need
to
to
see
put
where I rank.
Yeah, you need to put them in context.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. All right. So, anyways, um, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sammy says Ovet's streaming too. I didn't realize that. Um,
nice.
Yeah, so let's get to the races of the week. Do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, I can go first.
All right.
So you can pull up the video. I'll talk about. Rick actually sent me this race. It's a Swedish Swifters race, which is a strong weekly series, big participation. So it's great to cover it. And overall, like race of the week, this is cool. You watch this, and these guys have skills. They're almost all Swedish in this race. It's kind of cool. There's like 100 of them, and so this one was on the Champs Elysees, so basically, a crit almost. flat with a little grinder, 30K, big old field, and the power was on right from the beginning. Um,
Let
and
me are you, let me know when you're ready for the video. So again, I messed up where you can't see my thing, and when I put it on, it's gonna mess up our video here. So
throw up the video. We have a couple minutes here, and it's nothing crazy. I'll admit my recording failed in the sprint, so I had the whole thing and I stitched together. But the recording wasn't good for the sprint. But this is what I wanted to highlight anyway because I focused in on this rider. Rider of the week, Marcus Nielsen, Swedish. I focused on him because I noticed on this climb on the Champs Elysees, which is sort of the deciding part of this race, or it's the selection point, this long grind up the cobbles that you're watching now. This is where guys were getting dropped on the first lap. There's a huge split here, and like 20 guys went out the back. And I noticed this guy's doing a little less watt per kilo than almost everybody else. Everybody else is popping off 5, 6, and he barely ever goes above 5 watts a kilo on this climb. And you see his absolute wattage is pretty high because he's one of the heaviest riders in this race at 88 kilograms. And so this climb easily could have, thrown him off. He may have gotten over it and had nothing left, all of the above. But he's right near the front, but he's in the pocket, which is great. He's in the top 10 riders there, and he just feathers it just enough to stay there all the way up this thing. 4% now, he's doing a little more power. He recognizes that at this steepest point there, he needs to put in the most power to stay in that pocket, but then he backs right off again, back to 400. And as soon as they reach the crest, he's like the first guy to get off the power again. And so he's suffering. He's 178 beats per minute. Another dig there. And now he's on to the flatter part and off the power. There you go. He's off the power. And then he's looking ahead to the sprint, which is in 4K. So if you watch the watts per kilo around the guy, everybody's just, fighting each other for first wheel almost, which is the opposite of what you want to do for efficiency. And he just dials it in, and it was a really good performance. And then in the sprint, he was right in the catbird seat for the thing. And there was a few really strong sprinters, obviously. He came sixth. It looked on the line like he could have come second, like it was that close. And just a really good all-around race. This is a guy that knows what he's doing. And a lot of these Swedish guys knew what they were doing as I clicked around watching this race. So great race, great ride by him. He's got 50-something races, all in the Bs. Good performances overall. He's an all-arounder if you look at his power profile. He knows what he's doing. So Marcus Nielsen, Rider of the Week.
yeah, pretty cool. I know in the Bs that Swedish Zwifter series is always a very, very popular one. So yeah, congrats to him on that. Pretty cool. So the race Jacquie was going to do, and I apologize, I'm no way I'm going to do it justice. But we're going to do the Fierce Felines point, or the Fierce Feline Racing series from yesterday. It's a pretty cool race. So there are points race scoring. So the finishing order is, of course, determined by points in this series, which the first 20 riders across the line in each sprint got points, which I thought was pretty cool to go that deep, and then double points for the finish. So they weren't, it wasn't the same as like the ZRL where it's the fastest through or anything. This race was also done it was in New York, and there were 10 laps, and a lap was only 3-4 minutes. So there were just constant sprints. It was really, really fun to watch. Yeah, so let's take a look. So first we have the climb before the sprint. So we're watching Olivia from the AHDRL team. She is a C rider, and there's Annabella Stoll. Like I said, Olivia was able to keep up with the A and B riders for basically the first half of the race up this climb, and she averaged like 2.9 watts per kilo, where there were women averaging 4 watts per kilo. So she was really putting on a master class in Zwifting, like no joke. I mean, it was really, really impressive to see. Annabella, she got something like 20th in the Premier League. I mean, she is no joke. So the fact that Olivia could kind of keep up here was pretty awesome. So here we're going to take this left. We're going to go up a little uphill to the sprint, and this was really one of the deciding points in the race. So you can see Olivia, she gets in the middle of the pack. Her power doesn't go too high, and you can see everybody else around her. Their power is much, much higher than hers. So she really fade climbs it and then puts in a little dig over this hill. She is alone, so she doesn't have to sprint that hard. She's getting all the C points when she does it. But I just really thought, and you can see how it strings out, but she's not panicking. She gets up to 4.5, 4.9. But you see she's not panicking. She's letting other people pull her up to those wheels, using her draft van in a perfect spot to catch onto some wheels. You see it ends right after the banner. I mean, that was just one of the best executed things. Here we are, another similar a similar look at it. I'm actually going to fast forward this a little bit. But she really just if you find Olivia in a race, just go sit on her wheel and see what she's doing. I mean, it was fantastically impressive. She then ended up falling off that pack, and she had to kind of go attack alone. No, this isn't that clip. Sorry. So yeah, she's going to put in a bit of an attack here. She did fall off the pack eventually and had to just ride the rest of the race herself. But really just a fantastic. Yeah, here she is coming off the back. I mean, and that's going to happen with this kind of quality of the field when you're a C. I mean, you see she stayed up with her for about with the other women for about 25 minutes of the 35-minute race. So, good on her. She ended up just having to ride alone. I really wanted to get Jackie's opinion, and Jordan, if you want to hop in too, like when you end up alone in a field like this, do you sit up and wait for the pack, or what do you do?
I think it depends on the time of the race. If you think you can make it to the end and finish ahead of that group behind, then by all means. And also for me, I almost always keep riding because if that group catches me and I care about placement, I'm not going to beat any of them in the sprint. So I'll keep going. But if they're 5 seconds behind, you go back and recoup your energy, and you have a better chance of making it back. You have a better chance of saving some energy for those crucial moments, which you might be seeing right here, I guess.
Yeah, and so Olivia did go on to win the race. Her finish was pretty boring. She was just alone. I mean, congratulations to her. But we did watch the race for second. There were actually a couple 2024 development women in there. The race for second was really good. So you kind of see them come up to the line here. It does take me a second to find the women going away, but you see a really well executed sprint by the first two women, who I believe are the two who are starting to go away now. I must not have recognized it close enough. Yeah, it is. So you see Clark up there and starting to take the lead and push. She has a couple people on her wheel. She's trying to drop them, but it ended up being a really good finish. And here we'll jump to the top two, and you'll see somebody come around right at the end. So here we go. You see the woman in back drop the arrow helmet. She came around at the end. Just a really beautiful finish by her. And the race for second was a really good one. I mean, it was a really fun race to watch. I actually videotaped that one, and there were just such a high quality of Zwifters in that Fierce Feline series of all levels. I mean, you saw Annabella, who got 20th in the Premier League, but then you saw a C rider who was good enough at Zwifting. It's not like she was putting out 4 watts per kilo and she was light. She was 65 or 70 kilos, but she was staying at 2.9, keeping up with these women doing 4.0. And I would highly encourage, if you're trying to learn how to Zwift, like that's the type of race you want to get in and try to follow somebody like Olivia's wheel. Like, how did she get in that front pack, right? How did she manage to just have that sort of race? I mean, it was really impressive.
Yeah, those mass start races are some of the best to watch for that reason. You see the tactics of whether, oh, if I stay here for 5 minutes longer, but I blow to smithereens, am I going to get caught anyway by the rest of the seas? Like it's
Yeah.
good viewing and yeah, obviously a very good development opportunity, like you said.
Yeah, I actually rode in a mass start race on Thursday. And it's like it's one of those things where I think most of the time in those races you're pissed off just seeing if you're going to blow up over a hill, give everything you possibly can to stay with that group because sometimes you can put a minute on the pack behind you. And even if you get dropped off later, then you still have a couple minutes to recover as the pack behind you catches you, and then maybe you'll win that sprint because you had more time to recover. So they're tough, but they teach you to be a better Zwifter for sure. So yeah, Jordan, you want to introduce the team interview? We'll go into that, and then we'll kind of wrap it up for the week.
All right. So yeah, this week we have a little different flavor to the team of the week, the Chicago Virtual Cyclists, actually run by Jacquie's coach and Chris Navin, and he's an accomplished coach, and he runs a lot of outdoor programs and in-person classes and things. And so with the pandemic, he's made a shift to Zwift and to indoor cycling in general, and it's grown from there. So interesting team. It's very much in the early stages, but this guy's got the right ideas, and I think anybody with a Chicago kind of bias might be interested in this team.
Yeah. All right, let's get to it. Oh, looks like it didn't capture correctly. Hold on.
Welcome to Outside of the Draft Team of the Week interview. This week we have Chris Navin from the Chicago Virtual Cyclists. Hi, Chris.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, so your Chicago Virtual Cyclists is a new virtual team club that you've started, sort of like a lot of people have with this pandemic. Shifting some outdoor stuff to the indoors. Just give us some background on the CVC and the real life equivalent and how you moved it over to Zwift.
Yeah. I basically just started a group up because the pandemic happened. And so I had reached out to a lot of the athletes I worked with. I work out with a number of different training groups and bike clubs and tri clubs because I managed a big training center. And so we brought everyone together virtually just to keep them engaged, give them something to do. We're dealing with all the mental stress and anxiety of what was going on in the real world. So it was nice to be able to disconnect and, while we were socially distanced, able to socially connect and get into virtual cycling because a lot of people were, getting smart trainers for the first time, getting Zwift accounts for the first time and trying to figure out how do I use this? Some of them were not as tech savvy and I kind of created the group just to help and communicate with people on how to get involved and do some workouts. And then it just kind of naturally grew from there. It was mostly a Chicago focused group.
Right.
But we had a lot of people who moved out of Chicago. We had friends of people who were in Chicago, and it kind of became a group of not just local cyclists, but people all over the world who, just had either Chicago pride of some kind or a connection to Chicago. And it's neat to be able to ride with people virtually and know that they have, some type of deeper connection besides just a theme or a brand or like a lot of other groups will have different reasons and ways
Yeah,
that people are
I
connected.
like that. We've talked to a couple of the bigger Zwift teams, and they have that like starting a certain community and growing out, but having something where it's like your local tie-in, that's really cool. And hopefully these folks can kind of get together after this pandemic's over and you'll have built something there. So it's a new team. You're
Yeah.
starting out. We can still talk values and what the focus is of the group. What can a new rider, if they sign up, sort of expect, and what do you like to provide people with?
Yeah, it's really open to anybody and everybody. I mean, we have people from first timers who are back of the pack to people like Jacquie who are world
Right.
world champions in their own right. And so it's a wide range of people. A lot of people just join the group to connect socially, share news and ideas. So we have a Facebook group that people use to kind of just post things and kind of communicate with people that way. And we use a lot of different virtual cycling apps. So we have Zwift is kind of the main one, obviously, but we have other ones as well. So we get a wide range of people, and it's just an open community. So there's no obligation, there's no expectation. It's just there to share knowledge and connect people. And then we do weekly workouts. So we started with the Zwift Racing League just recently. So we have Tuesday warm-ups right before the Zwift Racing League, where we practice drafting and talk about the logistics of just how do you do these things. So anyone and everyone has kind of been invited into that. And Thursday nights, I share some of the workouts that I used to use at our training center.
Right.
So a lot of people were asking, how's Jackie got to be so strong? She's an anomaly, I think, but one of the things that made her so successful is her consistency. And
Right.
literally for 5 years or however long it's been, I don't remember. I think I remember 1 week where she missed a weekly workout, and that includes holidays and things like that. So for her, it was the consistency. Um, but yeah, within that group, we have what we call our Scary Fast Development Squad, and that's where we share a weekly structured workout through Training Peaks. So I create a free Training Peaks plan that people can just have if they want to join in, and then we do those workouts together using the Zwift workout mode on Thursday nights. And then we
Sweet.
do other races and other rides. We have the local cycling team here in Chicago. The biggest racing team in Chicago is Triple X Racing Atletico. And I've been a member of that group for a while. Very well organized. USA Cycling Club of the Year 3 times. They have all different programs: women's development squad, men's development, youth, junior. And so they traditionally had the biggest group ride in Chicago is called the team ride on Saturday mornings. And we'd have dozens, if not, sometimes 100 people on that ride. And it just shut down because of the pandemic. So now we actually moved that to a virtual ride, so people can connect and socialize and have the biggest Chicago area ride virtually.
Cool. Well, that's a lot. You got a lot going on. I mean, we got the Jackie Gotta Be secret sauce on Thursday. The warm-ups, which I think is actually really cool, the race practice. Like I coach as well. I tell a lot of my athletes to sort of try to practice that drafting stuff, but it's hard to figure out a way to work on that, in sort of a safe environment where you're not just getting spat out and going a million miles an hour. So yeah, cool combination there. You mentioned coaching and that. So you have CVC going and the real life equivalent. You also run your own successful kind of coaching business off to the side there with at least one star, which is Jackie. So you got all that going on, and you said a bit how it ties into the team. So are a lot of these athletes that you're coaching, on the team and vice versa? Obviously, that one workout sort of is right out of your secret sauce. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So, just in the last year, I've had to restructure everything. We were very much focused on in real life training. I had a CompuTrainer studio where riders would come in and do their weekly workouts together. And since that has stopped and that whole training center is basically shut down, non-existent, we started creating new programs. So we worked with charities. We have charity programs that we do. But I just recently kind of started up. It's called 4-Star Endurance, and that's the group where basically we focus on the 4 motivators. The things that keep athletes consistent, keep athletes developing. And so over the years, I've been a full-time coach now for over a decade, and I've generally found there are very specific things that keep athletes motivated and keep athletes consistent. So the 4 stars of 4-Star Endurance kind of tied back to that. So we do offer training plans. We use Training Peaks. So a big part of the team is to teach people how to use Training Peaks, how to optimally train smarter, how to do different test sets to benchmark your fitness, how to keep learning, keep educating yourself with new things. Whether we talk about metabolism or, everyone trains with power, but you also really need to be looking at heart rate and cadence and your metabolic efficiency, your fat and carb metabolism, and there's so many different areas. So I try to provide that type of education into the programs.
Nice.
So now I launched the 4-Star Club, which is basically just a way to give people a premium Training Peaks account with a training plan, as simple as that. and that's kind of the base program. And then obviously as a coach, I do a lot of private coaching as well. But we're
Yeah.
just starting now with offering kind of that virtual club option for folks too, which is very exciting.
Oh, I like that. I always like when the Zwift teams and clubs, you can have your basic social aspect, you can go a little more serious, and then you can get some real top end professional coaching all in the one package if that's the level you want to take it to. And obviously that can take you to the very top level of the sport, as you can see with Jacquie. So really interesting combination you have there. So we can talk about the future. The present is almost the future. This team's
Yeah, it's true.
I'm sure you're growing. I mean, you've already mentioned a lot of stuff that you're sort of delving into. 6 months, year down the road, maybe pandemic's over, but what can we look forward to with CVC, and what are you looking ahead to?
Yeah, I think there's a whole number of areas. So we used to do things like a time trial race series. So I think that's just going to continue to grow. I'm going to start doing that on the virtual platforms, so to try to get some more competitive athletes what they want. And ultimately, I partner with a lot of local other clubs and training centers. So I'm hoping to engage those additional locations in Chicago where we can physically get people together to compete with everybody virtually. So to have that physical and virtual group connection at a competitive level. And then also some development programs. So like our Triple X racing team has a pretty good youth and junior development program. So I'm hoping to facilitate that, get some more of our younger athletes into the pipeline, get them motivated, get them going. And then also Jackie's been huge on promoting women's racing and women's cycling. So we have one of our athletes and former coaches actually just took ownership of a local women's focused bike shop called BFF Bikes. So I'm hoping to work with them to really try to get more women into the sport as well. So I think getting a more formalized women's development program is one of the big things that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the kids getting kids on Zwift, I think, is a big next step. You don't see it as much now, but I think it's a great environment to develop racing skills and the fitness, obviously. And then there's we talk about it on the show a lot. There's a lot of upside still potential for the women's side in terms of training, racing, top to bottom. So that's some great stuff overall. So we're peak Swift season. People are going crazy for it. I think they'll continue to. I don't think it's going to be a New Year's phenomenon this year. I think it's just going to keep going. With all that going on, do you have any plugs, promotions, anything coming up you'd like to throw out to the potential people?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously we're doing a lot of little things, little different things. But I would say that the big thing that I love seeing now is how the community is growing just naturally with what's going on. I think the Zwift Racing League has been very exciting, and so we just started getting people together for that. So I'm hoping to continue to grow that. So if anyone out there is a Chicago fan, I think it's interesting to see how our team having a geographic tie. It's kind of like how when you see in professional sports, you got Chicago Cubs, Chicago Bulls, and all that. To have kind of a team that's regional. So if you're a fan of Chicago, if you live in Chicago or the Chicago area, and you want to race with other people together, whether you're on different teams in real life or you don't have a team, this is kind of the community to bring all of those people together. And I'm hoping for the next Zwift Racing League and beyond that will continue to get more and more people together in more and more teams. So it's really just a fun, a laid back group. We're trying to share ideas and teach each other with a little bit of a coaching structure behind it to keep everybody motivated. But yeah, if you're looking for a group, definitely join. And I think you see that in other cities too. So I think there's a lot of other groups that have kind of started to develop with more of a regional tie. Um, and
There you go.
yeah,
That's awesome. Well, so yeah, if you want to have some fun, you want to race, you want to get fast, go to the top level, any of the above, and if you like Chicago, CVC is a good spot for you. Thanks so much, Chris. Thanks for coming on, and yeah, I would encourage everybody to check out the team on Zwift Power, check out the Facebook, and all everything you mentioned.
cool. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Yeah. So the CVC club if you're interested. I reach out to Chris, super cool guy, good to talk to. Yeah, so Jordan, our one big thing of the week, every week. This week I'm springing it on you again because I forgot to bring it up. What's the one big thing you do for recovery after a ride that you're like, this is my thing, this is my tip?
Okay. Well, I'll shift it a little bit to recovery in general. Because I think one thing that I've realized in the Zwift racing campaign, I mean, I already knew it a little bit, but it's increased in importance is the importance of off days, days where you just do not ride the bike. I think that a lot of training programs and a lot of people trying to mimic professional training or perceived professional training think that, oh, even on an easy day I should pedal for an hour or 2 hours at a 50% of my FTP or something, and that'll make me fitter and that'll make me a better athlete. It'll help my recovery. Maybe, but I think that, like, when in doubt, when you're really beat up after a race or ride and you need to recover, I think a day off is the ticket. I think it's the way that your system regenerates the best, especially the sort of nervous system. Racing has a big toll on that. Stresses your nervous system, your adrenal system, and sometimes a day on the couch is what you need to bounce back. And so I've been taking a day off almost every week for the entire season, I guess, that I've been on Zwift, and it works. The next day I feel a lot punchier, and it sort of holds me over for 3 or 4 days rather than an easy ride every couple days. So I would recommend that. It's hard to do. We all want to ride our bikes all the time, but it really pays off.
Yeah, no, I like that one. I actually took today off, took my kids sledding for a couple hours. We got like 6 to 9 inches of snow. So yeah, I don't know if that counts as a day off or not, but it
Hard
was
work,
it,
man.
it was work hauling toboggan up the hill. It was fun though. Okay, so my big thing is probably less general than Jordan's, but you know, Trainer Road podcast, which I love. They always talk about recovery shakes and stuff like that. And I'd been doing this for a long time. And part of the actual reason I made this recovery shake is because it's good for you, and I thought my kids would eat it, which they do. So, bonus if you're a parent, your kids might actually eat this thing. But it ends up with the perfect 4-to-1 protein or carbs to protein, which I didn't even know about it when I made it. I just put stuff in I thought my kids would like again. So what I do is I put in milk. I have a blender. You put in like this much milk. It's like 250 milligrams. Yeah, I know. You can't see that. It's like this much. And then a banana and 2 tablespoons of cacao. And the amount of cacao, like pure cacao powder, 100% cacao powder. So not cocoa, cacao. And that's what I made for my kids. But what I do is after a ride, I'll put half a cup of oats in there, and you got to grind it up really good. You got to have a good blender, and that ends up with that 4-to-1 ratio. And you got to make sure you swirl it around, otherwise you end up just eating pure oats at the bottom, which is disgusting. But yeah, that's my one big thing. Always makes me feel better. And then if I don't put the oats in, my kids will eat it, and they think they're having a shake, and they're really just having stuff that's good for them. So yeah, recovery and tricking your children is kind of the 1-2 perfect thing.
Well, and hey, you see all these expensive protein powders and stuff that work out to be like $2 or $3 a serving. And I mean, that's, way more economical and way more natural food as well. So
Yeah, well, that was kind of the idea. So
Chef Rick is on it.
yeah, Chef Rick, something like that. You can come over and eat sometime, and we'll see if you ever call me that again. Yeah, so I didn't see any questions from our viewers today, but yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Jordan, thanks for joining me, and yeah, we'll see you all next week.